Welcome to Sisterhood Check-In. I am your author, life, and beauty coach, Nadira Lewis, and I am excited for so many reasons. One, because it is Friday. Yay! Two, because my birthday is tomorrow. Yay! So I've got a lot to celebrate. I'm grateful that God has allowed me to live these 47 years of life. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to just make it this far. Some people have not made it to live to be 47. So I'm grateful that God has given me the opportunity to live these 47 years. But today, I am excited because we started a little bit late today. I just had to get some last minute things in. Trying to find that balance as a mom, businesswoman, etc. But I'm excited about this broadcast because, as we all know, this is the love weekend. So this is a special edition Valentine's Day broadcast where today I'm going to talk about 3 different types of women. The first one is a healthy woman. We're going to go over what is considered a healthy woman. We're going to go over what's considered a broken woman. And then we're going to go over what is considered a toxic woman. So in this broadcast, I want you to kind of look through and with some of these, some of you might find yourself being all of them. Some of them you might find that you're maybe one of them. I have found myself to be at least 2 of them. I've been the broken woman. Can't really say I've really been toxic when I look at the characteristics of a toxic woman, but I have been broken, and now I consider myself a healthy woman. And there are things on the healthy woman list that I continue to strive to get better at, to maintain that level of healthiness. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what a healthy woman looks like. And it's crazy because when I thought about it as I was going through this, and I thought, wow, when you really think about the stages that you are in life, you can be any of these depending on circumstances and different things that happen in your life. But we're going to go over what is considered a healthy woman. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about some solutions on how, if you are a broken woman or considered to be a toxic woman, if you see yourself in that, I'm going to offer you ways in which you can change that. So, healthy woman. And I put a meme up about this the other day, and I said a healthy woman is usually the product of effective parenting or great examples. Now, some of you might say, well, my mom may have not been there. My parents may have not been there. I wasn't raised by my parents. You could have been raised by your grandparents, or maybe you grew up in a household where you didn't have any role models, and you may have had some examples like some women in the church. You might have had a neighbor's mom. You might have had an aunt. You may have had a cousin or somebody that might have been a great influence to you. So that's what I mean when I say examples of effective parenting or great examples. You don't have to always grow up in a house with perfect parents. That is not that's not always the case. I didn't have both my parents in the household, and I still think I turned out pretty well. So, number 2. Characteristics of a healthy woman. 1, we said usually the product of effective parenting and or great examples. 2nd is strong sisterhoods, meaning that you might have people around you that hold you accountable for your life and make sure that your well-being is okay. Make sure that you're doing well. Make sure that they're looking after you, making sure that they're there when you're sad, or when you start to go in a direction that goes against who you are as an individual or as a person, or goes against your integrity. They're there to say, that's not the right thing. They're not afraid to correct you when they see that you're going down an area that might affect you or affect your family or affect your future. That's what I mean by strong sisterhoods. Number 3, Make halfway decent selections pertaining to relationships, meaning that you understand you're not only just making healthy choices in terms of relationships, you're being a healthy person. You're taking the initiative to make sure that you're okay emotionally and physically, and that you're contributing to the relationship, that you're not always pulling from a relationship, but there's an even balance. You have a balanced relationship with men, meaning that in your dating relationships, it doesn't mean that all of your dating relationships are all perfect, but it means that that you have an understanding of what is considered healthy and what is not considered healthy in terms of a relationship. All right, next. A healthy woman has a conscience of the value God has placed in her and on her. Okay. And we're going to look at Psalms 139:14. Let's pull it up. Psalms 39:14. I love the fact that you can just type in something and it can just come up just like that. All right, so 139:14 says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Your soul is comprised of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So that means that you have an understanding of you have an it's like your internal being is aware of the value, and understand, I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made. I don't have to have a certain look externally for me to feel valued. A healthy woman is balanced and productive on all levels, meaning in her spirit and physically and relationally. So with a healthy woman, she doesn't normally trip if she's at an area of her life. Most women, when we get to a certain age, we start to feel like, oh my gosh, we're over the hill. We start to feel like, not in all cases, but there are some women that feel like when they get to a certain age that it's too late for them to accomplish the things that God has set out for their life, or they start to feel like they haven't accomplished certain things. So they start to feel like a void, and they start to feel like that something is missing in their life. So some of these, as I'm going through them, you might find yourself like, because I've looked at this and I'm like, okay, I'm still striving in certain areas, but these are characteristics that we should be striving for as healthy women, as a healthy woman. A healthy woman understands that beauty is here today and gone tomorrow. There's so much emphasis on society about looking beautiful instead of being beautiful, especially now with everything going on with movies and commercials, and everybody wants to pose for the gram. Everybody wants to look a certain way. She looks like this, I want to look like that. So our perception of beauty is more external than it is internal. But a healthy woman understands that beauty resides on the inside. Everything that you do on the outside should reflect what's going on the inside. A healthy woman has balances between femininity and assertiveness, which means that she can be a boss, but she's a boss lady. In other words, she knows how to put on the hat when she's at work or running her business. She knows how to put on that hat as the boss woman. But when she comes home, she takes off that boss hat. She's not walking around, especially if you're married, you're not walking around dominating your husband. You're not walking around wearing, just pretty much just operating at home the way you would do at work. A healthy woman understands that you have to maintain a balance. And though you might be a boss, you're a boss lady. When you come home, you're a mom. If you have children, if you come home, if you have a husband, you're a wife when you come home. So she knows how to balance her femininity and her assertiveness. A healthy woman never loses concept of her own femininity. She understands that she's not only a boss, but she's a woman, and that she has needs, and that she has And then she has people, and then she had that her husband has needs, and that her children has needs. So a healthy woman understands. She doesn't lose she doesn't lose a concept that she's a woman. A healthy woman also has standards around her character and dignity, which means that she doesn't just settle for anything. You know, she doesn't allow relationships where men disrespect her or demean her. And it doesn't mean that she's able to control everything that the other person does in a relationship, but she does control what she tolerates. So she has a strong, she has standards. You know, no, you can't talk to me that way. You can't disrespect me, and it'd be okay. She has standards around her character and her dignity. Healthy woman also has a strong sense of individuality. And it doesn't mean that because you have a strong sense of individuality that you don't know how to submit as a wife. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to work together in a relationship. It means that you understand who you are as an individual, and you know what you bring to a relationship, whether it's a friendship or whether it's a marriage or whether it's a dating relationship. It means that you have a strong sense of individuality. You know who you are. You're not forming your identity around the relationship. You come already equipped, understanding and knowing who you are. A healthy woman is health conscious. And that is one area I'm learning. It's one area that I'm working on. A healthy woman is health conscious, which means she eats in a way that supports longevity. You can't be a healthy woman in only one area of your life. You have to strive to make sure that, because let's just face it, the reality is that if you're going to be your best, look your best, and feel your best, there are some practical things that you have to do in order to maintain that. You have to take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, which means you have to, the Bible tells us we ought to guard our heart with all diligence, but out of it flows the issues of life. A lot of the things that we go through in life has a lot to do with what we allow into our lives, mentally, emotionally, physically, health-wise. So a healthy woman is health conscious. So if you're one of those women who have not learned, and it doesn't mean that you do all the right things in all the right way, it means that you're striving. You're intentional in making sure that you're eating right. You're intentional in making sure that you maintain, because let's face it, let's just be real. Can we be real? You can't fulfill the will of God for your life if you're always exhausted, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you don't have the energy to do, exactly what God has called you to do, because you're not eating right. And that is one area of my life that I've learned. I've completely done a 360 when it comes to my eating habits, when it comes to how I take care of myself physically as well as emotionally, because you need both. A healthy woman, you can actually tell the health of a woman by how she carries herself, how she takes care of herself, and by her language. As women, we don't have to walk around with a foul mouth in order to express who we are and our intentions and what we stand for. I have learned, I've never really truly been a woman that had, I used to. Now I did have a period of time where I don't know what was happening to me. I would literally cuss you out in a minute, and I realized that there are better ways to express yourself without always having to curse. Because to me, I felt like the harder you curse, the more you got your point across. But I had gotten to a point where I realized learning how to communicate my feelings and my emotions is a whole lot better, because it did more for me more so than a person. Because if you ever notice, when you're the one that's upset and you cussing folks out, is that you're the one that's more pissed off, and that they go on with their life and they feel like, oh, Okay. And you're the one with all the steam and the anger. And then I realized that I was hurting myself, not being able to communicate and stand on what I believe, that how I should be treated or how I feel. So the last but not least, she is self-esteemed and not out to prove anything. Let me tell you something. The more healthy we as women as women that we become, you realize that the more authentic you are in identifying those things about your life, that it does something to you. It's like you don't really feel like you're not basing your value off of what people think you are. You're not basing your value on how other people esteem you. You realize that I esteem myself because of who God created me to be. And sometimes we have to go into what I consider discovery mode in order to get there. Because a lot of the times we don't really know. Let's just be real. Some of us don't really know our identities because we haven't taken time to go into self-discovery mode and to search out. Just think about when you're on the internet. When you're on the internet, you know, your Wi-Fi has to be in discovery mode in order for the person or the people that are trying to connect to connect. So in order for things to connect, you have to go into self-discovery mode and get in an agreement with some of the things that God has already spoken about your life. I'm just saying. And those are some things that I have noticed and it's amazing because when you're a healthy woman, you start to look younger. I'm telling you. You look younger. You start to feel like you're aging backwards because you realize that most of the stuff that we allow ourselves to stress out about is really not worth our time. All you're doing is adding age and frustration to yourself, really. The more you realize that when I set a standard for who I am or who I desire to be, because you may not be there yet, but when you set a standard in a direction of where I desire to be, and you begin to make the necessary changes around that, you'll start to feel like you won't feel as strained. You won't feel like, oh my gosh, I think with us is that once we get as women, when we know all of this and we begin to create a balance around it, you'll feel a lot better. You'll look a lot better. Some of us look like we're 100 years old because we allow the weight of what we go through to burden us. We allow the weight of what we do to literally just take over our lives. So again, a healthy woman, before we take a break and go into what a broken woman is, I want to make sure I repeat that for those that have just come in. A healthy woman is a woman that is the product of effective parenting and or great examples. She is a healthy woman, has strong sisterhoods, support systems around them where they have friends that hold them accountable. They also make halfway decent selections pertaining to relationships. They have a grasp conscious. She has a grasp of consciousness of the value that God placed on her and in her, meaning that she has an internal awareness of that value that God has put in her and on her. She's balanced and productive on all levels, both spiritually and physically. And she understands that beauty is here today and gone tomorrow. So she doesn't put all of her efforts in the external part of her, but also on the internal part of her. She doesn't base herself on the external, but more so on the internal. She balances her femininity and her assertiveness. She can boss up and never lose touch with her femininity. She's not just a boss, but she's a boss lady. And she understands that she's not that she have to create standards around her character and her dignity. And she has a strong sense of individuality. She also is health conscious and eats in a way that supports longevity. She rejects negativity. You know, let me just say this. If you're going to be healthy mentally, you have to reject negativity. You have to say to yourself, we're not going to do that. I can't sit here and listen to and allow myself to internalize negative thoughts. You know where negative thoughts come from? Words, negative words. I refuse to allow anybody to speak negative to me or around me. I can't tolerate it. I have zero tolerance for it because I realize I feel a lot better when I create an atmosphere of positivity and truth. You know, I don't have time for negative stuff. You know, you got to create that space where you eliminate negativity. Again, another one we didn't discuss is she's polite and she's wise. I don't know any healthy woman that walks around with an attitude. I don't know any healthy women that walk around with a chip on their shoulder. You can't be healthy emotionally and walk around with a chip on your shoulder. It just doesn't happen like that, you know. And last but not least, she has self-esteem and she's not out to prove anything. So those are some of the characteristics of a healthy woman. We're going to go into a break, and we're going to go and talk about after the break, we're going to go in and we're going to talk about what are the characteristics of a broken woman. We'll be right back after these messages. We'll be right back. All right, we are back and we are talking about 3 different types of women: healthy women, broken women, and toxic women. In our first segment, we talked about characteristics of a healthy woman. In this segment, we are going to talk about the characteristics of a broken woman. And many of us have been there and probably is still there. And I want to help you get through that. I was one of them. I was a broken woman. And I'm telling you, it's not a great place to be. So let's go over what are characteristics of a broken woman. Desperation. Number one characteristic of a broken woman is desperation. Desperate for a man. I just gotta have a man. Desperate for attention. Focus on me. Me. Look at me. Me. And the reason why that happens is because most people, what they do is their value and identity is locked into the approval of people. So they become desperate and hungry for attention and for validation. And I always say validation is for parking. Number 2, most women that have been broken are a result of broken relationships, whether it's, and it doesn't always have to be between boyfriend and girlfriend. It can be between husband and wife. It can be between father and daughter. It can be between your brothers. You know, any type of relationship from a male perspective that you may have experienced where it's not functioning the way you expected it to be. Some women can be broken because of that. Number 3, A broken woman usually views herself as a sex object. You know, in society today, everything is about sex. Sex sells, You can't really do a whole lot of anything in this day and time without sex, without some sort of sensual or sexual appeal. And for most women that are broken, their identity lies in being validated by somebody who looks at their body in a certain way. So she views herself as a sex object, meaning that if I'm not having sex, if he's not, if I don't walk around with my boobs out and my butt hanging out, I don't feel attractive. I don't feel attractive if I'm if I'm in a place where nobody's looking at me sexually, and desiring me. You start to feel like a sex object. You're a broken woman if you return to the same predator. Same type of spirit, same type of relationships, where you might have been in a relationship with somebody that cheated on you, disrespected you, but yet you keep returning to that type of relationship, never taking the time to sit and allow yourself to evaluate where things went wrong and learn how to heal through that, so that you're not taking that in the next relationship. A broken woman is riddled with guilt. Guilt drives her life. Everything she does is riddled by guilt. A broken woman struggles with low estimation of herself, meaning that she can't be complimented by a man that just may view her as beautiful without feeling like she's not deserving of it. Somebody can come to her and say, you know what, you're beautiful. Not all men that compliment you and tell you how beautiful you are is not after your underwear. Not all men that look at you and say you're a beautiful young lady trying to hook up with you. Some men have a genuine, some mature men and healthy men have the ability to just compliment you and say, you know what, you're a beautiful young lady, or you're a beautiful woman. I have to tell you a testimony, a story about one day I was in a gas station and I was getting some gas, right? So I go in to get the gas, and this guy, I never met him before. To me, I didn't even think I looked all that great that day. I didn't feel like it was a special time where, and it was like right around Valentine's Day. I wasn't trying to attract anybody. I was just trying to get gas. So this man comes into the gas station. He buys a rose and he just says, I want to give this to you. I think you're a beautiful woman, and I just want to, and I think you deserve a rose. And I said, well, thank you. And he walked away. Not all men that compliment you mean that they're after something and that they want you. So you shouldn't feel a sense of embarrassment whenever a man compliments you and tells you that you're beautiful. You shouldn't feel embarrassed. You should already know that about yourself. And if you don't, then you need to sign up for my daily affirmations so that you can say it to yourself, because it doesn't matter what other people say. If you don't say it to yourself, it's not going to mean anything, because you believe yourself first before you believe anybody else. A broken woman lives to impress, meaning that everything that she does, she looks for validation from things and from people. Everything she does has to have a validation. She's always looking to impress, and always need of approval. A broken woman views sexual attention as approval. So you don't even know how to have a genuine conversation with somebody of the opposite sex. Sort of almost like what I mentioned about the example at the gas station. You view every attention, or every, you look at it as this person, if nobody's like looking at my body, or if nobody's hollering at me, then that must mean they're not interested in me. Or you meet a guy, you date a guy, and the guy wants to genuinely get to know you as a person, and you feel like, well, they must not be attracted to me because they're not after my body. That's the mindset of a broken woman. If he's not looking at your body, it could be that he may be interested in who you are as a person. He may be trying to get to know you as an individual, see what's inside of you, not necessarily what's on the out, whether you've got big boobs or not. But a broken woman sees sexual attention as approval. So if you see somebody hollering at you saying, "Hey, I like that big booty you got. Hey, girl, I'm telling you, you look good, girl. Them titties on you look good." No. First of all, I've had maybe one or two people approach me and tried to say something, and I nipped it in the butt, and I never had that problem again. And you have to carry yourself to a place to where when people look at you, how your standards and how you view yourself is almost like a guard over you, so that when people walk up, they be like, "Oh, I can't say that to her. I can't talk like that in front of her because she's a woman. She's a lady. She's a woman that respects herself." And people can tell if you're a woman that respects yourself by the way you carry yourself. Next, broken women use sexuality as a success strategy. She feels like she has nothing else to offer, so she offers her body. That's a really, really sad and disheartening place to be, where you don't really understand the full value of who you are, and the only thing you perceive as value is your body. The only way you perceive that you're important or worth anything is by the way you look externally, or how big your butt is, how big your boobs are, how clear your skin is. We should not use our sexuality because we got a bad shape as a success strategy. A broken woman equates personal value with relationship status. These are women that go from relationship to relationship, never spend any time alone to reflect on what went wrong in the previous relationship, that never reflect and to look at where I could have been a better person or a better contributor to the relationship. Your only focus is you just don't want to be alone. And because you don't want to be alone, you gravitate to anybody with male body parts. You feel like you have to have something to prove. You feel like you have to be on Facebook and they have to see a picture of you and somebody else. Sometimes you just have to just take time and just sit still and just allow God to restore you and heal you through these different breakups. Sometimes it's not a bad thing to be alone for a season. And I say that because there's a lot of things that you find out about who you are. There's a lot of things you find out about yourself that you don't always have the time to look at when you're going from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. Some people use relationship as a coping mechanism. And so they get so used to attracting the same type of people that they don't take time. You ever talk to people and they say, I want this type of relationship. I want that type of relationship. I want them to be like this. But those type of people that you desire want healthy relationships also. They want help. They want women that appreciate them. They want women that value them. They want women that know who they are and not just like you do. So in order for you to attract somebody, and you can attract the type of person that you desire, but you have to take time to grow into the type of person that is best matched with that person. Because I'm going to tell you something, healthy people don't want to be in a relationship with broken people. Healthy people don't want to be in relationships with somebody that doesn't value who they are. I'm just saying. So if you're attracting the same type of relationships, you might need to take a pause and look at some areas of your life where you may need to grow so that you're not repeating the same habits and attracting the same type of people over and over again. So that is what those are characteristics of a broken relationship. Now we're going to talk about characteristics of a toxic relationship. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to get into the next characteristics of woman, and that is of a toxic woman. We'll be right back. Good afternoon, good evening for some, good morning to others. I want to take a moment to give a quick moment of wisdom when it comes to the area of your mind. It's not a matter of what people say you are, it's what you say to yourself. The more you take time to affirm who you are, the less fear has a chance of choking you out. The more you affirm who God says you are, the less fear you have of being able to activate the very thing that God has called you to do. So I wanted to take this afternoon out and just tell you, you are what you think. The Bible says, as a man think in his heart, so is he. So however you think about yourself is shaped by the words you allow into your heart and into your mind. Have a blessed afternoon. All right, and I am back with the first two sessions. We have been talking about 3 different types of women. In segment 1, if this is your first time watching, we talked about characteristics of a healthy woman. In segment 2, we talked about characteristics of a broken woman. So now we're in our last segment, and we're going to talk about characteristics of a toxic woman. But before we do that, I'd like to open up the lines as I normally do and read everybody that has been engaging, read your comments. And if you have anything that you want to add or say, please make sure you leave so in the comments. So we had a comment from Miss Khadija. Hey, sis. Hey, Khadija. How are you? All right. And Kevin Robinson says, obedience is key. Yes. God bless. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Khadija. And that is true. So in this last segment, we are going to talk about characteristics of a toxic woman. Okay. Number 1, the first characteristic of a toxic woman is negativity. Negativity. Never has anything positive to say, always says something, always looking to have something. There's always an objection. There's nothing, just nothing positive about her conversation. And normally when you really look at what the basis of a toxic woman comes from, a woman that has been broken and allowed her brokenness to literally had to just take over. So number 1, negativity, signs, characteristics of a toxic woman. Number 2, manipulation. You ever meet somebody who is just blatantly manipulative? Always having, just always finding ways for things to go their way. Never is open to anybody else's suggestions or directions or feeling, just manipulative. Don't know how to ask directly for what you want, but you lie and you cheat and you steal to get what you want. You enter into relationships with men solely to get what you want. You enter into friendships to get what you want. You manipulate your parents, you manipulate your children, you manipulate your kid's father, your husband, just manipulative, Jezebel type spirit. Toxic. Toxic. Next character trait, narcissism. Always have to be in control. You have to control everything. I mean, you don't give anybody else the opportunity to take part in anything. You just have to control the narrative in everything. So you're toxic because you are negative. You are toxic because you are manipulative. You are toxic because you are controlling, narcissistic. Yeah. Characteristics of a toxic woman. Bitterness. Bitter. Just nothing. I mean, you're easily offended. And because you're easily offended, you gripe at people. You snap at people. Always, just always cussing folks out because you are toxic. You've allowed your emotions, your disappointments, and your frustrations to take over. And it has caused you to not only be bitter, but toxic. Nobody wants around a toxic woman. You're just argumentative. Even the Bible talks about being being with a woman being toxic, wanting to, tearing down her house with her words and her actions, toxic. Nothing positive. You don't encourage your children. You don't encourage yourself. You don't encourage your husband. You're just toxic. And you need to be healed. And you need to take some time and allow the brokenness on the inside of you to be healed. Your secret frustrations have caused you to lash out. And most people are toxic because they have things that are dying on the inside of them. Unresolved issues, unresolved frustrations, unresolved relationships that have no closure to them has made you frustrated and harsh and cold. Yeah. So, which woman are you going to be? Are you going to be a healthy woman? Are you going to stay in your brokenness? Are you going to continue to be toxic? It's up to you. But I choose the ram of a healthy woman. I choose the characteristics of a healthy woman. And I have to be intentional with creating a life where not only am I creating an atmosphere of positivity, but also allowing myself to heal through disappointments, to heal through hurt, so that I can be able to continue to be effective in every area of my life. You can't be effective as a mother when you're broken and you're bitter. You can't be, and let me tell you something. And this is important, worth addressing, because there's a reason why we should be concerned about the health of women. It's because we're nurturers. Women nurture. Let me tell you something. We are nurturers of society. We are the ones that, the Bible tells us to train up a child in a way that he should go, so that when he get old, he will not depart. That takes nurturing. It takes more than it takes being able to make deposits in your children. Your children are not going to just grow up one day and just be everything that you want because you want it. You have to be intentional. I remember in my early years of parenting, the sacrifices that I had to make and feeling like I'm missing out on my life because I had to make those sacrifices. But when I had a reality check and I realized that I am responsible for the outcome of their life as an adult, and their foundation of who they are and what they believe has a lot to do with what I impart into them. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we had a conversation about teaching, having a class. You can't expect your children to be a certain way if you don't teach them, if you don't hold the class. If you don't hold the class and teach them, then they have nothing to pull from. Everything that they have to learn on the go, or they have to learn from other people. But if you teach the class and your children, and you have done everything that you could as a mother to groom your children in the direction that they should go, and they still go the wrong direction, it's not our job to our job is to prepare them for the test. Our job is not to take the test for them. So if I prepare you for a test and you fail anyway, you didn't fail because I didn't prepare you. You failed because you did not study. You didn't internalize the lessons that I've given you. So now the lessons that you learn now have to be through hardship. The Bible says the way of a transgressor is hard. When you rebel against your parents' teachings and your parents' instructions, then your life will create an avenue of hardship. But as mothers, it is our job to nurture our families, to nurture the relationships, to nurture. It is the man's job to provide, to protect, and to be the priest over the home. It is our job to nurture the atmosphere of the house. Our job, we are to create an atmosphere where our family can thrive. And you don't have to be married to do that. You can be single and nurture the atmosphere where you are. Once you grasp a reality of what nurturing is, the ability to cultivate love, you're creating a safe place for love, vulnerability. When you understand that and you realize that it all boils down to you as the woman, you're the nurturer, we nurture our families, you will look at how you deal with your children a lot differently. I've had to give up a lot of stuff because I had that conscious awareness of I'm raising adults. This is going to be somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's husband, somebody's father. And I have to be able to walk away and see them grow up into adulthood and be able to say, I've done my part as a parent. I've done my part, and pray that I can be not only now I'm going to be their parent, but now I'm going to walk alongside of them as they become adults and coach them in the teachings that I've already given them. So now your children are feeling like you're always talking, you're always drilling them, but now they know that you're standing alongside of them as parents and you're coaching them through life and saying, you can do this. You can be what God said you could be. You want to go to college? You want to do this? I'm here to support you and to push you through that. I'm going to give you the tools that you need so that when you become an adult and you walk out of this household, you're equipped with love. As parents, and I want to talk about this too before we end, especially mothers that have sons, we have to be careful to love our sons in a balanced way. And what I mean by that is love our sons and teach them that loving, that when they become married and they start to get married and they start to enter relationships, that wife becomes number one in their life. The Bible says that you ought to cleave. When you leave your mother and your father, you ought to cleave to your wife. Sometimes when we have an unhealthy love for our sons, it makes it difficult for them to put their wives first because we've loved them unhealthy. We haven't created boundaries, and there's nothing. We're going to love our children. We're going to love our children. As mothers, we're going to love our sons. We're going to love our daughters, but we have to make sure that we're loving our sons in a balanced way, that they're not afraid. They're not intimidated to put their wives first. They're not that when they love their wife, they love them in a balanced way. And there's not a competition of who comes first. I understand that I have a healthy love for my mom. I have a healthy love for my sister, but I also have a healthy love for my wife. That means that when you are married, your wife comes first. But when we love our sons in an unhealthy way, and we overdo it, then they start to feel like that we have to be put first and their wives are put second. And that should not be. That should not be. We should have a healthy sense of love. So that's something that I practice even with my sons, is that I make sure that I'm loving them in a healthy way, that they don't have to feel like they have to choose between me and their wives. And the same way with our daughters, we have to love them, because we have to realize that God gave us stewardship over them. We don't own them. We're stewardships over their lives. Wait a minute, we have some comments up here. Let's see what we got so far. So true. I needed this. Oh, yes, Anna, absolutely. And Valerie says, and absolutely. Sometimes, let me tell you something. Sometimes as mothers, we overly love our sons to the point to where they feel like they have to depend on us emotionally. They have to depend on us for that. They can't, it's hard for them to detach themselves from us and to put a lot of their energy into their wives, because they, like I said, they feel like they have to choose. And you never want to put your sons in a position where they have to choose what God says biblically first over you. And that's why we have angry mother-in-laws and bitter daughter-in-laws, is because we have an unhealthy way of loving our children. So we have to learn how to teach our sons how to the best of our ability, especially if you're doing it alone. You have to teach them how to love you in a balanced way and allow them to be exposed to other men. And don't be afraid to create boundaries for your sons so that they can love healthy, so that they can be in relationships with their wives and not be compelled to be pulled. Because let me tell you something, when you raise healthy sons and healthy daughter, when you're healthy, when you get healthy and you raise healthy children, what happens is they attract healthy relationships. And then they begin to get wives and husbands where it's not a competition on who goes first. My son-in-law is amazing. I couldn't have picked up. I love my son-in-law. There is a healthy relationship between my daughter and her husband. My daughter knows that she's married, so her husband comes first. Doesn't mean that she has created healthy boundaries. And I have respected those boundaries, and I have encouraged those boundaries. Even when we've had our times of talking, I've encouraged that. And that's what we have to be. We have to understand, because sometimes we treat our sons like our husbands. Yeah. I don't want to be alone. So you don't want your son out of your sight. So your son begins to take on the role of your husband. And now he feels like he's got to take care of his wife and you. And he's pulled because he feels like he has two wives. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't take care of your mother and that there isn't a balanced way to love your mother. And it doesn't mean that your mother does not have, it means your mother has a healthy position in your life. Your mother will always be your mother. But just because it just means that she goes from, she's always going to be your mother, but it means that she steps back and allow you to be a husband to your wife and a father to your kids, and that she understands that her job now, as you're an adult, is to motivate you to continue to follow in those lessons of being a father, and encouraging healthy relationships with their family. So, as far as daughters, we talked about sons. Even with daughters, we have to encourage, when we become healthy, we have to encourage healthy relationships for our daughters also. no matter what the circumstances is. Because what happens is when you get healthy, your daughters see what we fail to realize, ladies. Let me tell you something. What we fail to realize is children do what we do, not what we say. You ever had some of the parents that say, do what I say, not as I do? No, children do what they see you do. They mimic what you do. So if you walk around and you live a life and you're telling them don't do this, and then you do something, you actually live contrary to the same life that you tell them not to live, then they start to look at you and say, you create a distrust. They start to feel like they lose their sense of security. They start to feel like, what else is she? What else? If she doesn't believe this herself, then what else doesn't she believe? And then they begin to doubt themselves and they begin to question their own identity because you're not healthy. You're not doing what you encourage them to do. And that's really been a huge thing for me as a parent, is spending a lot of my parenting life and making sure that I am healthy and that I am balanced, so that as they begin to see me in my life, they begin to see, and I can be able to exhibit balance in my life. They'll be able to look and say, this is what it looks like. Not something that we just say, because we're good at drilling our kids. We could tell, like, you better do this and you better do that. And then when our kids become of a certain age and they look at us and say, well, mommy, you did it. And then we want to beat the kid down and smack them in the head and tell them to shut up because we don't like what we see or what we hear. But our children are innocent. They're innocent. And they will mimic what they see. And they will show you and make an embarrassment of you, when you out in public and you expected them to be one way, and they make you look like you ashamed because you think you expected them to be one way and they go out in public and act totally different. It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of your parenting. So we got to get healthy so that we can create, because we're nurturers, we have to be healthy so we can create, so we can continue to create and nurture healthy families, healthy relationships, and healthy parenting. That's it. That's all I got for you today. So if you have enjoyed this particular, and if you've enjoyed this broadcast, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you hit like and share, and make sure you sign up for my daily affirmations. Go to www.selfcare101 club. I'm going to put it up. Make sure you go there, sign up for, join my mailing list and sign up for daily affirmations sent to your email. I believe part of becoming a healthy woman is being able to affirm and remind yourself of the things that God has already declared over your life. But if you don't know what that is, then you can't put yourself into remembrance of something that you don't know. So make sure you join my mailing list. The website is down at the bottom of the screen. Go to www.selfcare101club.site. If you have not purchased my book yet, What Happened to Me? How Did I Get Here? Make sure that you go to www.womanofproverbscoaching.com and get a copy of my book. You can also get it on Amazon. What Happened to Me? How Did I Get Here? And if you have a testimonial that you would like to share on Sisterhood Check-In, make sure you send me an inbox on Facebook and IG at the @ Woman of Proverbs. It's been a pleasure spending my Friday, my pre-birthday celebrations with all of my sisters. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, but I'm just smiling because in this day and time, I'm just so grateful to be able to live one more day. So I hope you all have a great weekend. Don't forget to make sure you click like and share, and I will see you next week here on Sisterhood Check-In. Until next time, happy Valentine's Day weekend.
Refugees, dirty immigrants, asylum seekers, job stealers, that is what they see. Beautiful faces, thick accents, a melting pot of culture, holding 3 to 4 jobs, back pocket of hopes and dreams, seekers of opportunities, that is what we see. I am Georgia Lawrence, the founding attorney of Georgia Lawrence LLC. I was born and raised in Jamaica. I migrated to the United States with 2 suitcases and $200 to seek a better life. I understand firsthand the importance of having a fighter on your team to navigate the complexity of the immigration system. Hence the reason I chose immigration and human rights law. Here at Georgia Lawrence LLC, we take pride in connecting our passion and purpose to your plan. Give us a call today.
What's going on, guys? It's Daily Trades with Chris here. I'm hosting a 7-day webinar for you to understand how to trade the stock market, futures market, and the Forex market. This one particular trading strategy has 3 steps, okay? Very simple. All you have to do is look for a trade, place your trade, and watch your trade play out. In this 7-day webinar, I'm going to be going over exactly how to get into the market, where to get out of the market, where to set your stop loss, take profit, and you're going to have a risk management rule in place too as well. Now, this Z trade, in fact, just dropped 400 points on oil. If you do the math on that, that's about $4,000 just from one contract. If you want to learn how to make $4,000 in one single day with the Z trade, respond back to this email right here. Comment below in this video, and I'll get back to you with all the information that you're looking for.